Hi, I'm Pilar, licensed clinical social worker, former nonprofit professional, turned owner of my own private practice. 6 months ago, I left my administration job in social work. Social work is one of the most undervalued and underpaid professions, in my opinion, that requires a master's degree. And in many social work environments, you actually have to have a license in order to call yourself a social worker. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about a phenomenon that we have been seeing in kind of the corporate world, and of course, millennials are the ones who sort of get blamed. It's something called quiet quitting. And something that I find really interesting about this idea of quiet quitting is that it is probably tied to burnout, and also during the pandemic when we all sort of redrew these lines of what we are willing and unwilling to do for our employer. The way that we as a US culture started working or continued working changed. And some organizations didn't follow that trend. Some of them, instead of pivoting to the work that could be done remote, some of them continue to require their employees to come in person to the office or to limit the availability of remote work. And this has significantly impacted our workforce. It significantly impacted the way that we do work. If you're not familiar with the term quiet quitting, it is basically a way to do the minimum without jeopardizing your job. So the idea of going above and beyond or staying late for the good of the company, things like that are not quiet quitting. Is saying, I'm gonna turn off my laptop at 5. When it's quitting time, I am going to stop answering emails in the evening. I am going to set some limits. The interesting thing about quiet quitting is I hear that and I hear, oh my gosh, they're boundaries. People are setting boundaries. Social work is a field that requires a lot of boundaries. If we don't have boundaries in social work, we will burn out. And I speak from that firsthand in my own experience of working, feeling like things are gonna get better and they don't. I honestly think that this phenomenon of quiet quitting is something that has existed in the social work field for a very long time. The tricky thing with social work is that you're often working in an agency or an organization that preaches something like work-life balance or generous PTO packages or sick vacation time unlimited, right? So it sort of appears that there is an opportunity for you to take time off. In my experience in social work, in the positions that I have held, this PTO time and the generous PTO package is incredibly difficult to actually use in a way that supports your own health. The workload doesn't follow that. Let me break down what I mean by that. Your agency, your organization is responsible for covering for you, covering your clients, covering your staff. Oftentimes what happens is that burden actually falls onto the social worker. Again, my own experience. So let's say this generous PTO package that you've received for the agency and organization that you're working for, let's say that time off gets approved, yet while you are off, you get inundated with phone calls from your boss. Maybe one of your clients goes into crisis and the established plan doesn't work. Oftentimes what happens in social work is that agency or organization reaches out to you anyway. And they say, hey, I know that you're off right now, but could you ... This is where it becomes a problem. Many times over my 15 years of agency work, I was required to do things like cancel my vacation, adjust my PTO, work from home, even though it wasn't really something that company policy approved. Or, in the best case scenario, when I was able to get my PTO approved and go on vacation, what ended up happening is when I came back to the office, I had 500 unread emails. 500 unread emails. That type of expectation to return to the office, we talk about Sunday scaries. This was like vacation scaries next level. So when we think about social work and boundary setting and this idea of quiet quitting, It's actually something that I am like a really big fan of. The only way for us to push against this expectation of social workers doing it all, doing more, savior complex, some of those dynamics that we see within the social work field, the only way to push against that is to establish boundaries. And quiet quitting is a part of that boundary establishment, in my opinion. Something that also exists within social work is this idea of doing it all. The savior complex. Things where we think about how there's more work to be done. There's always more work to be done. And it's very difficult to say no when a client is in crisis or when somebody needs 15 extra minutes of your time to process something that happened, right? Those are things that are very difficult to say no to because we're working with people. We're in one of the biggest customer service industries in the world by providing really good service to our consumers, to our clients, to our patients, to our people. And it often feels like we cannot say no. And that dynamic, that is something that I had to work really hard to be able to get to a point where I was comfortable saying no to things that were asked of me beyond my duties in the workplace. When I reached this level of burnout, when I reached this level of my own sort of quiet quitting space in my former nonprofit job, I wasn't going above and beyond. I wasn't able to. I wasn't answering emails after hours. I was turning my phone off at night. I requested my PTO and I used it. And that wasn't possible all of the other years that I worked for the same organization in the company because I didn't believe that it was okay for me to take that time off. I didn't believe that it was okay for me to say no. So the question, is it burnout? Is it quiet quitting? Is it boundaries? Is it quiet quitting? I would say that it's all related, especially in the field of social work. And here's why, because we need boundaries in order to maintain the level of work that we do in social work. If we are burned out and we are exhausted, we don't care well for ourselves and we're not able to hold the things that our profession calls us to hold for the people that we are serving. Boundaries are necessary. If you are a social worker, I would love to hear your opinions and thoughts in the comment section below. Feel free to follow there, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you again. If you are a social worker, I would love to hear your opinion on this. Is quiet quitting similar to boundaries for you? Have you seen this level of burnout in the type of social work that you practice? Leave a comment below and subscribe to this channel. You are worthy of being valued for your time, your energy, and your expertise.